current affairs, facts and opinion, their future in our hands. Markets, globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report.
And welcome back, folks. McIntyre Report. Jamie McIntyre here, reporting live for Australian National Review. Just after this, we'll go and talk about the Bondi issue, but we'll finish this segment on the trend of people fleeing the West. It's now increasingly becoming more and more wanting to do it. We've predicted this trend for some time, and even after what's happened in Bondi yesterday, the amount of people that have contacted us going, that's it, I'm done with Australia. We've seen this being told this was coming, it's being planned, and we're out of here. But for more reasons than just increasing violence in the West, unaffordability, house prices through the roof. It's not the country it used to be. Americans would be familiar with this as well. They grew up in a very different country to what it's become. Is this the country they want to remain living in? America, Australia, England, Western Europe? Or is it time to go? The heyday has been. It's been a great period for the West since World War II, but is that time coming to an end? I'm joined by another guest today that's done exactly this, Bill McIntosh. Welcome to the McIntyre Report, Bill. I know you work in independent media. You're a host. You're also of independent media, but you're also a publisher of a book, The Dirty Locked Away History of the Democrat Party, and of the book Convicted While Innocent. So you work with a lot of the independent journalists and the independent media industry. You're also someone that tells your story. You relocated away from America some years ago. How's that worked out for you? And do you see more Americans and Westerners wanting to do what you've done?
No, yeah, they're doing it. Just give you an idea, talking about what happened when, friends and people said, I'm done with Australia. Going back about a few months ago, I was visiting family in Iowa, and I was just walking our dog on that part of the grass between the sidewalk and the street. And this guy comes out of his house, furious, cussing me out, going ballistic. We say postal in the States, threatening me. And I said, "What's the problem?" I said, "I'm just cleaning up after my dog." And he was livid because the dog was, pooping on the grass that's like between the sidewalk, which is managed by the town, right, and the street, So, but he's all upset, and he left his house and he started getting to be menacing. So one of my members of my family went out of the house, took a gun. A few of my sons left the house. And I was staring him down, and this guy was just absolutely going bananas, just going crazy. And I said, "What's the problem, man? I mean, I picked up after my dog. I'm now leaving. I have nothing against you. I have no issues. I don't know what your problem is. Well, why are you so upset?" And he was just, it turns out he's having a mental health crisis about some other things. But this type of reaction seems to happen a lot in the States now. And whereas before it just wasn't, people always were very proper and concerned about protecting their property and all. And so people respect that. But this is showing how things are going. People are getting more and more unhinged in the States. People are at the breaking point, upset with a lot of things, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes not justified. But anyway, so, I went back to Peru because we had to take care of some errands. And, but the cost of living here is so much cheaper. I mean, you can get a 1-bedroom apartment for $500 US in a nice building with a concierge. You can go out and have dinner for two for, $20 US. You can go and enroll your child in the school, and it might cost, $150 to $200 US a month, whereas a private school. Whereas something like that in Australia probably be 3,000-4,000 Australian dollars a month. In the US, it'd be 4 or 5 as well, maybe more. In fact, some private schools now are cost to what U.S. universities are costing, and public schools are just a trash bin. Kids don't learn; they're not up to par. Give you an example. My kids, 5 of my 6 kids, 4 served in the U.S. Armed Forces. They were educated in Peru largely, and we're talking like from kindergarten up. And when they went to the U.S. military, they take what's called an ASVAB exam, and it's a 1 to 99 score. Well, my kids two got 98. The highest is 99. Two got 98. One got 95. One got 94, and they were like astonished. They thought that my kids would be like, educated, just like cavemen, third world education levels. No, it's not true. Peru, which is a developing country, actually taught them very, very well. So there's lots of opportunity. It's very tranquil here. I feel safer in Peru, sadly, than in my own country.
Yeah, well, it seems to be a trend. And we look at that. I mean, the Age of Empires, July 4th next year, I think it's 250 years for the American Empire. Typically, that's the cycle. But they're actually, you could look at the streets of some parts of America, and it's becoming third world. And you look at places, Peru, or I'm here in Indonesia, that used to be third world nations that are becoming, look at a lot of Asia, like China even was an emerging, economy, a third world nation. But now look at it. Look at Singapore. Look at these places, how rapidly they've evolved. Where the West, you look at China, new roads, new buildings, new cities, infrastructure everywhere. You'd be lucky to find a new bridge built in America. Decaying infrastructure that just it's been neglected, and they've been involved in so many wars and so much money siphoned off, etc. So it is a change. I mean, we have to accept the new reality. If we look for another 5-10 years, I mean, how bad can America become? How bad can Europe and the West fall? We've seen London. I mean, what's happened to London? How rapidly was a former British Empire that's collapsing in live time, and Australia's been cushioned a little bit from that, but we've just seen yesterday the Bondi Massacre, the increase in violence as expected is starting to come. So that there's many factors. Obviously, do you find, like in Peru, and there's a lot of other South American countries, it's closer area for America, is there a lot of expats you're found in Peru, or what are some of the other countries?
Yes. You certainly see more and more of them. It's amazing. I mean, Mexico. In the Western Hemisphere. Or I'm sorry, it's funny. The Americas, North and South America, and Central America, and the Caribbean. We're seeing tremendous numbers of expats going south. They're going to Mexico in large numbers, but Mexico has had a very serious problem with violence because of the drug cartels. And since it's so close to the United States, we border with a huge border with Mexico. There's a lot of people doing it, going to Mexico for dental work and health screening and tests and things like that. So the prices are starting to go up. In Peru, you have a lot of people, but Central America, Costa Rica was always the place, but it's gotten to be just overrun by foreigners. So the prices just start to go up. And you see people starting to discover many places, but Peru is like going bonkers. It's so popular that I get a little bit concerned, because it means that prices will start to increase. Sadly, that's what always happens. So you do see a lot of people talking about Peru. It's stable. Oddly enough, Jamie, it's stable, because even though we've had like 8 presidents in like 6 years, and we just got a new one. I mean, they all end up going to jail. It's unbelievable. One was president twice. He ended up committing suicide. He was about to be apprehended and arrested. But despite all this madness, Peru is surprisingly stable, because they went through a period of great strife with Sendero Luminoso, which is like a communist China-backed insurgency that was horrendous. And then Alberto Fujimori got in, and he pacified the country. It was just amazing. It was like night and day. And he was talking about infrastructure. Alberto Fujimori, may rest in peace, he recently died. He was a civil engineer. He'd see a river that for some reason had no bridge, just unless you go down river 20, 30 miles. And he'd say, right, we need a bridge right here. And then he'd go walk into the town and say, how come we have a hospital that has 10 beds? This is a town of 4,000 people. That's not acceptable. And boom, they put up a hospital. He was an amazing guy. He was a doer. So you have a lot of people coming here, discovering Peru, discovering that it's got so much vibrancy and lots of mining, manufacturing, a fishing industry. So it's got tourism is just going great. Incredible food, Jamie, and this all brings people in. And then people say, "Oh my gosh, it's so inexpensive." I mean, I can fly from Lima to Cusco for like $100 round trip. Are you kidding me? It's all true.
Mm.
So people are coming here, and keep in mind, we have a problem with inflation in the States. And I don't know about Australia, but we have a pretty big problem with the steadily declining U.S. dollar, and it means that people say, I can't afford to live on the States anymore with my pension and Social Security. It's just not enough, and they go south. They buy real estate for maybe half the price, or even less, and so they're doing great. So there are lots of Americans. To answer your question, yes, many are coming. Hopefully, not too many, because then it's gonna kind of ruin it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the issue Bali's facing. It's, I call it the global refugee camp, especially obviously a lot of Australians, but Europeans, also a lot of Americans as well. As particularly since COVID, I think people intuitively, even if they don't understand geopolitics, how the world really works, sense that things are changing in the world. It's not quite the way they always thought it to be. And they have to look at their future. You look at a lot of kids, a lot of young people as well going, well, in Australia, I can't really afford a house. They have to queue up 100 people to 400 people queuing up just to rent an apartment, let alone be able to beg the banks to have the money to go into debt for 30 years and be a slave to pay off a ridiculously high-priced property. So inflation is affecting and hurting everyone, and we know the root causes of all that, and that it's not going to be fixed in the short term without probably a crash. And so America is certainly facing that, and I feel sorry for a lot of Americans because, I mean, just they earn less salary than, say, in Australia, but the cost of things in America is insane for food.
Oh, yeah.
No wonder it's a fast food nation, because a lot of people can't afford a restaurant meal because, it's so expensive. But also, now they're even making it difficult. It's kind of like when the immigrants are flooding in, they open the floodgates to immigrants. It's probably the time to leave or already have left. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Does it bring opportunity? Does it bring betterment? I think in some cases it can. You can have immigrants come in that really do make a tremendous contribution. You have people. I mean, at the end of the Soviet Union's life in 1991, from that point on, we started getting people from Eastern Europe coming and others, and they were well trained. A lot of them had PhDs, and they didn't have this infrastructure in Russia or Eastern Europe to be able to take advantage of their education levels. But they came to the States and they found it. So in many ways, yes, I have found that many of the immigrants that went to the United States from Latin America could contribute tremendously to it. It improved housing prices, but we started to get a certain type of immigrant that was very, very backward. People that had literally didn't finish primary school, went to school to second or third grade. When they're 8 years old, they left school to work on a farm or work in the fields, and then they came to the United States, and they've got no concept of what it is to drive a car properly, much less drive one, and what it means to interact with people at a government office. Just proper conduct, and they would come. For example, you'd see people coming in the summer, and our summers in the States are from basically June to September, and then they would just on vacation, right, from Colombia, and they would just enroll their kids in schools, and each one of those kids was 3 kids. Each one of them was 8, 9,000, 10,000 US per year per student, and just no qualms, no problem. I mean, for us to do that here, I mean, it would be unthinkable. But some people might, but it's just so it's very backward, very selfish, very entitled. But many of them were good immigrants, no doubt about it. But a lot of them lately are becoming basically people who are a net drain on the economy. There's something very interesting somebody said, that is that a lot of times big business and leftists like the idea of immigration because they can privatize profits, but they socialize the costs of this immigration. In other words, schools, hospitals, infrastructure, government offices, all sorts of expenditures on food and on breakfast programs for their children. And people, an emergency takes place, somebody gets arrested, jails. I mean, it's endless. And so, but the private corporations, they're taking in the profits and the low wages benefit them tremendously and increases their profits. So it's a net loss because Americans then find that their kids can't get a job. For example, when one of my kids went back to the States, they're Americans, to enlist in the Marine Corps, he needed to work a couple of months. He couldn't get a job. And, he had to take the lowest level job possible. He couldn't get a job in restaurants. There are probably tons and tons of illegal immigrants that were working there with a fake Social Security card. So this is what happens. So we're seeing a lot of it. One thing, by the way, regarding the differences between Bali and Australia, Stuart Ballantyne, the writes for Spectator in Australia, I know him, and he raves about how he can get things done regarding shipbuilding and maintenance of naval vessels and what have you, merchant marine fleets and all in Indonesia, but he can't do those things in Australia. So we have this tremendous infrastructure that's being developed in developing countries or third world countries or emerging economies, and we're losing these skills in our countries. It's stupid. Now, there's something else I want to mention to you in this whole expat movement. It's called passport bro-ship. In other words, passport brothers. These are guys that they can't find a good mate, a good wife. So they go to the Philippines, or they go to Mexico, or they go to Colombia, or they go to Peru, or they go to Argentina, and they find their life spouse. They couldn't in the United States. And what you mentioned about Australians not being able to get houses, I knew that I was working in New York. I had a job that was equivalent today about earning $90,000 in the U.S. a year. Not too bad. I could not. There's no way I could ever get married there in New York. So what did I do? I went south. I went to South America, and then it happened. At the time, I was literally taking in like $150, maybe $200 a week, and I was able to get married. Had 5 children in 10 years, and got widowed. But the bottom line is that in what you can't do in Australia or in the States or in Canada or Europe, you can do in emerging economies. And one of those things is basically being able to have a family. It's not affordable anymore. In many places.
That's a very good point, because a lot of people go, well, I can't really move because I've got a family, but it's like, I can't afford it. And I'm saying, well, you've got to see what's coming for the West. If you can't afford it, you're not going to be able to afford to continue to live in Australia or America or Europe. You don't have to have a crystal ball to predict the cost of living is going to increase, etc. And it's only going to get worse. The social upheaval, the division, all these things it's predictable. We predicted it. It's happening like clockwork. It's not like anyone should be surprised, but people now, oh my God, I can't believe this stuff is happening. It's like, well, we kind of told you it was coming. You wouldn't listen. So
you made your bed.
Yeah, it's like, don't leave it too late, because the flood, I was just talking to Justin, a guest that's relocated from America to Bali. I said, look, if some people leave it too late, they might have to eventually go, look, as a trickle turns into a flood, say even Bali, these places that the governments might have to go, look, we can't take anymore, or we can only take people that have a minimum investment much higher, and put restrictions on that. Right now, you can get out of the West, cash in out of your house while it's still a decent price, and live like a king in emerging countries, South America or Indonesia and Asia. But if they leave it too long, they won't be able to get their assets out, because the Iron Curtain will come down and go, well, you can leave, but you're not taking any money out of the country, because the dollar will crash, etc. And the last thing they'll want, they'll have capital controls imposed on people fleeing. I mean, those things are highly probable.
It's true. It's true. And what concerns me, as our countries become deindustrialized by way of, it's so much cheaper to manufacture in the Far East, let's do it. Let's get on board with that textile plants in Vietnam or in China or Cambodia. But the problem is, we're starting to lose our knowledge base, our infrastructure, to the point where Australia and America are becoming like colonial hinterlands, where the India used to provide a lot of rubber for tires and things like that. I don't know, copra, and because we're starting to just produce raw materials. Like Australia is an absolute colossus in mining. So is Peru, by the way. But the United States has a lot of raw materials that are provided, like soybeans and coal and things like that. But we're starting to become more and more impoverished, because we're losing our know-how, our human capital to be able to produce things. And this has to do with something else that we haven't touched on yet, but it's a very big, let's say, dynamic, and that is population decline. We're seeing so many, Australia, we're probably seeing like 1.3 children per woman in Australia. In the States, it's like 1.6. In Poland is supposedly going to save Europe because it's so, it's like keeping out the crazy immigrants from the Mideast. Okay, great. Poland is like in a dire situation. It's 1.03 children per woman. It's basically, we're looking at a country that is like communist China that had a one-child policy. We're looking at something that's basically going to collapse demographically. And that unleashes horrendous dynamics tending towards war, conflicts, unpredictability. The best signal, or I think metric for a stable country, is a birth rate of just over 2 kids, 2 or 3 kids. Chile is stagnating. Japan has been in basically a long-term, 3-decade-long recession. Why? It's declining. You have villages that no longer have people in them, and I think it's happening in Australia. And so what do? They bring in, something funny is taking place in America. All these people were going, agricultural workers were going to the States, okay, to pick fruits and vegetables, whatever, no problem, normal. But then it got to be so bad that farms in Mexico were bringing in people from Guatemala because their husbands and their children, oldest male sons, were not there to pick the crops. So they can Guatemalans. I mean, this is a race to the bottom. So I think there's a lot of interesting things going on there. But one of the biggest elephants in the room, Jamie, is population demography, population decline, feminism. That's like another disturbing issue that nobody's talking about it. Nobody. It's like the one thing you can't say. It's like the third rail. A third rail in the States means basically it's that part of the train system where the electricity power goes through and it powers the train. It's called that certain things you don't discuss. Like the third rail of politics is changing, retirement for senior citizens. You can't talk about it. But the third rail today in our culture is now getting to be the issue of feminism and what it's doing for our countries. It's meaning that Australia and the United States are declining because we don't have enough children to produce in factories anymore. You have to pay them so much more money. And so it's always more appealing in places with large populations that are developing and you have an arbitrage situation where their currency is less expensive than the Australian dollar, the US dollar, the euro. And so, everything is going towards cost, and it has a lot to do with the fact that our countries sadly are stagnating and declining in terms of population.
Yeah, well, thanks for your insights today, Bill. I appreciate that. That's all we've got time for in today's show. But you raise a lot of valid points. America and the West is in decline. A lot of people go, well, I'm going to stay and save my country. But ultimately, some things are outside our control, and we have to focus on what we control. And that's the decision I've made. Is like, well, I love my country. I still do the best to politically help fund a political revolution, etc. But those things, a media revolution, a lot of those things outside our control. We still got to get on with it. And obviously outside the West, there is a great opportunity. It's also, a lot of people don't realize you got a chance to contribute and help other communities in other countries do well and help them. And it's very rewarding to be able to help. I know in Bali and Lombok and Indonesia to help the locals. And I'm sure you do the same there in Peru. Sure. You can contribute and make a difference, and you can be part of a community, a guest in another country, and most of them make you feel very welcome. And it's a nicer way to live. So thanks for your time today, Bill.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jamie.
There we have Bill McIntosh. He works in independent media, has his own show, author, and knows many of the independent journalists because he books many of them, their guests on their shows. Let's go to a quick ad break, and we'll be back with some more.